Thank you. Good morning and welcome to the 4th Community Culture, Arts and Sports Committee of the Year. All councillors in attendance except for Councillor Doyle. So we'll note her attendance when she comes in. I'll pass over to Councillor Kunzelman, if you may, for the acknowledgement this morning.
Thank you, Chair. Today this committee recognises the traditional custodians of this land on which we meet. We support their right to democratic representation and social inclusion. Ipswich City Council respectfully recognises the ongoing challenges faced by Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, and this committee supports their inclusion and participation in community, cultural, arts and sports activities.
Thanks, Councillor. Item number 1 this morning is the confirmation of the minutes of the previous meeting. And the recommendation here is that the minutes of the CCAS committee held on the 18th of April be confirmed. I'm happy to move those. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Mayor. Any amendments needing to be made to those minutes? No. We'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous and carried. The second item this morning is the citywide programming group. Would anyone, well, I'd like to speak to the relevant council officer on this one. Thanks, Ms. Gregory.
Good morning, Carly Gregory, Manager of Marketing and Promotions.
Thank you. I believe the outcomes of the establishment of this group are kind of obvious, but let's potentially instill some optimism about that citywide calendar engineering piece and how important this group is to that as a whole.
And I think you're right. It can seem very obvious, but I think there's real value in formalising a group like this across council. There is so much programming going across all departments, sections and branches at the moment. And I think there is absolutely, we're finding real value in making time every month to sit down as a group and negotiate, you know, what's the priority, what gets airtime, and that's absolutely going to lead to some efficiencies in both budget and resource. But I think better than that, as we're a growing city and we'll need to program more, you know, to the outreach of the city as it grows, this is an opportunity to not be asking for budget increases all the time, but to be using the resources we have more effectively across those teams.
I'm keen to understand your thoughts on this, but I thought, you know, what a great group that we've started internally here. There are external event producers across the city. Would we potentially consider involving them in this process or inviting them to a meeting?
Absolutely. I suppose we just felt like we should get our own house in order first before we start, you know, asking external people to come into the group. So I think it would be fair to say that something like city events, and probably libraries are a great example, there's lots of engagement with external stakeholders and event producers all the time. And, you know, to your point about calendar engineering, we really work with people to say, we can support you if you work with the city events calendar, you know, for lots of reasons, whether that's accommodation, you know, there's only so many bed nights in the city, or if it's just giving that airtime, so not every event is on the same weekend when people want to attend all of them. There is absolutely scope to bring in external partners. At the moment, we are still working through meeting everyone across council and kind of giving them highlight and showcase time. But that's where we would imagine this would go in a next horizon.
Nice. Who chairs the meeting? Is it?
I think what's great about this is one of our officers who's in a city events producer, Valkyrie Blacksmith, is the chair at the moment. And I think Don and I and Ben as our GM sort of act like, I suppose, sponsors. So Don and I usually go to the meetings, but I think it's really important to have that that leadership from within the teams. So for someone like a producer, they've got those relationships and it's building really strong networks. And it's a great leadership opportunity. They're doing a fabulous job.
Great, thank you. No further questions. Thanks, Ms. Gregory. The recommendation here is that the report concerning the citywide programming group be received and its contents noted. I'm happy to move. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Kunzelman. I'll open that up for any discussion. Mayor?
I think it's great. I didn't know what was happening until I read this paper. So It's great that this is happening. I don't know, has anyone attended any of them, or are they just council officers only, or?
It's officer only. Yeah,
Yep.
I haven't attended any, but I've been kept abreast of some of the discussions that are being had in that group, and there's definitely some light bulb moments. And as Ms. Gregory said, it's kind of that brokerage. You know, when are you having your event versus when are we having our event? How do we communicate with the broader community about, you know, people get a feel for our city events, and you know they're kind of locked away in those weekends and weeks within the annual calendar. So I guess, you know, as we continue to roll out city events, you know, we have a better understanding and oversight of what exactly is going on. We have had instances, and I think it kind of all comes to a point, right? So there's lots and lots of events happening across the city. We work out that, hey, we're actually doing a lot of them. We've got children's programming at the gallery. We've got, you know, the libraries doing their programming. We've got NSP, you know, doing some amazing stuff during the school holidays. Plus then our city events over that. It's kind of, let's take a step back. Let's ensure that, you know, we've got these placed, you know, on the right days. So I think that it's something that we certainly asked about. I would say all of the councillors had some intrigue in the first couple of months of being elected to say, what does the city events calendar look like? Is there one? You know, how do we capture all of the good things going on in our city? So I think that this is a way of slowly working towards that, and potentially, you know, promoting a front face of that calendar and inviting people to be involved and place their own events in it. You see it in many iterations across other local government areas and to relative degrees of success, because it's so heavily reliant on community groups being able to input what they're doing at certain times as well. So there's going to be some great outcomes here, and I'm glad that it's been brought to the committee's attention to say, hey, we're onto it and we're trying to be more strategic and use the resources more effectively in that space. And more importantly, let's stop fighting for airtime when it comes to media and communications, and let's highlight those priorities for us.
I think too, something for the organisation to consider, obviously it's an internal working group, but you know, those programs that we do run, not just the libraries, but you know, whether it's the mobile nursery or you know the school visits, the sustainability school programs that we have, making sure that they're there, and I think it would be good to see those programs added to it as well.
Yeah, environment sustainability are definitely around the table.
Thank you.
Thanks. With no further discussion, we'll take that to the vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous and carried. Item number 3 this morning is the Community Funding and Support Allocation Status Report from the 1st of Jan to the 31st of March. The recommendation here is that the report concerning the funding and support program be received and its contents be noted. I'm happy to move that. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Doyle. I'll open that up for any discussion.
If I may, obviously just looking at, it's a busy time with Anzac Day, I guess, with I just want to thank the organisation, but also all the RSL sub-branches and the Anzac Observance Committees working with council on that, and noting that council did, you know, work with every single one of those organisations that asked for it at a cost of nearly $50,000 to the ratepayers. So I know that the sub-branch and the Observance Committees were very happy with how things were conducted again this year, and they've certainly on the day and since then have reiterated over and over again to me their appreciation of the council support here.
Yeah, agree. It doesn't get easier to, you know, organise an event, and Anzac Day is such a huge day in the calendar for us.
And I think they like the fact that they're leading it, so the paths of the march, all that sort of stuff, that those veteran groups and those observance committees are leading and council's supporting, which is the way it should be. Supporting
and building capacity and helping broker and understand. I mean, let's think about the legislative framework around traffic management, for instance. I mean, that is such a hot topic for us, and so much has changed within the last 10 years where, you know, police used to be more involved, rolling closures used to happen. There's been legislative reform to improve, you know, safety, and the requirements now are quite extensive and oftentimes difficult for, you know, our event organisers to understand. So council plays a really vital role in helping unpack and understand those things. So it's great use of funding for us. With no further discussion, we'll put
Sorry,
that...
also mention, it's okay.
Sorry.
With the community projects funding, Chair, just note that obviously we've got that money sitting there, but obviously we haven't had any 6 applications.
Yeah, there's a bit of an explanation for that.
Okay, are they still undergoing an assessment, or they're...
Yeah, because of the nature of the cut-off of this particular reporting
Right.
time, yeah, we'll see them
Okay, it'll be
coming
assessed in
in the
April.
next report, yeah.
Okay. And I guess the other thing is council discretionary funds. I've obviously exhausted my allocation, but obviously I was going to discuss about whether if it's not being all used up by all councillors, whether they can still go into a pot for them to be used, because there's sort of certainly about $40,000 sitting there now, I think, where that is allocated and doesn't roll over to next year.
I'll take that question on notice.
Yeah,
Good
so
question
just a
for
query.
Mr. Poll. Yeah, because if there are funds there, that can be distributed to our community, absolutely. You and Councillor Johnnick have absolutely flown through your monies in the discretionary fund, so congratulations and well done. And yeah, we're edging closer to the end of the financial year, so it would be a missed opportunity. I know in some instances there's been thinking, particularly in that RADF money, do we just pool it and have, a mega round or something like that? I'm sure that, if we ask Mr. Poll.
And I appreciate the council discretionary fund is guided by legislation.
Yes.
So it's kept at a maximum amount, but it's within councillors' discretion of how that's used.
Yeah, absolutely. Councillor Johnnick, sorry.
I'm wise with money, but then I'm also very sympathetic to applications that come through, okay?
Yes.
So,
It's a balancing act.
thank you, Chair.
Yes,
I'd just
Councillor
like to add, whilst I do have some monies available in my discretionary fund, I like to think I leave the best to last, noting some of the best organisations and community not-for-profits will be coming through, and I have available monies, so thank you.
Absolutely. And it's such a time of year thing too as well, when we think, events keep chugging and, little top-ups here and there. It's nice to have some in the back end, so, where others have exhausted, we can fill the gap and support our community in that way. With no further discussion, I believe I moved that, didn't I? Yes? We'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous and carried. Item number 4 today is the Customer Experience Program Quarterly Report, March 23. Could we please have Ms. Cahill to the lectern?
Mayor and Councillors, my name is Anne Cahill, Customer Strategy and Experience Manager.
Thank you. There's certainly a particular type of energy and personality in the CX team, which, we see each week at the CX Exchange. And it's so lovely and collaborative, and what an environment that, reaches outside of your team and throughout council. I was talking this week with Mr. Poll thinking, well, it hasn't even been a year of CX, but it feels like so much is happening in that space. So if you can reflect on, the time, that started at the 1st of July last year and think about what we've achieved here, what are some of those big highlights that we can grab onto to let our residents know we've made these meaningful improvements?
Yeah, thank you for the feedback. Even that meeting itself, when we started that CX Exchange, my manager, Sam Chandler, wanted to make sure that the organisation saw that everything was transparent, and we weren't trying to do something that no one could be part of or anything. Everyone could be part of. The first meeting had 3 people in it, and we now regularly get between 50 and 60 people across the organisation attending. And for me, in the beginning, we knew what we wanted to achieve. When we started researching and looking into things, I was probably a bit gobsmacked by the complexity of some of the cross-functional teams and how we worked and operated. But for me, now all that findings and research is done, you can see from this report that we're delivering a lot more, the speed's picking up, and you're going to see that more and more. The customer will directly see impacts now. And I think for me, the big ticket things are that our vision was that we listen to our customer, and now we're doing that. And what that means under the CX banner is that in the past we've listened retrospectively with surveys, possibly 6 months after a service has been finalised, where now we have it in real time. The customer can provide feedback, and the business has access to that information. If the customer wants to be contacted immediately when a request has closed, we're contacting them within a day. I'm calling that proactive customer service. So it's now affecting the business and how we're working, but also the customer is seeing the benefit of that work.
I've got a couple of notes here that just have Mayor written next to them because I think that they'd be of particular interest to you. And based on some questions and some discussion that we had this week about utilising that feedback and truly understanding it and where the responsibility sits, I think is really important. So in IAP2 Customer Insights, the opportunity to review feedback and consider when improving service design, that's not just CX, right? That's across the organisation. So that's other departments being able to look at those insights to ask themselves, how do we improve our business?
That is correct. But I would say to the organisation that customer experience is everybody's responsibility. And I think that understanding through the collaboration of our small team is working. We could not have produced what we have so far without the whole organisation understanding that. To give you an idea, the feedback that we've put just on our CRM at this stage, in the next 6 months we'll go across other channels, but we've had 805 responses from customers straight away. And if they've asked to be contacted, I've got the number here, 190 have asked for contact. As I said, they are contacted. But the business, we don't have to spend time talking to the business. We've moved from report to dashboard, so at any time the business can open the dashboard and see it right down to their service. Where before, when you did a survey, you just got general feedback, where now they can see which services the feedback relates to, and they can consider it in their service design and other things.
I like that. And I'll give you a particular example that the Mayor used this week, and I think it's a pretty good one to try and unpack the way that we collect data and how we can better use it. If a customer sends an email or phones in to say, phones in to say, hey, I want a footpath out the front of my house, they get a response back from the relevant department saying it's not in the 3-year capital, or, you know, there's a whole host of reasons as to why it might not be there. How can CX influence business partners to actually keep that data so that we can use it in a meaningful way? Is there a place for CX to encourage business partners to collect that data? So, for instance, I guess the example here is we as elected representatives would like to see more broadly what our residents are saying to us through those channels. But it's not necessarily, customer experiences role to play in collecting that data. It's actually up the line with the business partner in, infrastructure design,
Yes.
So how can CX influence that so we are collecting that data so that we can see it? Or is this something that needs to be taken up with that specific business partner?
No, that's our responsibility. So the things that I've talked about today, we haven't gathered anything else that we haven't before. But in the past, we've been data rich, but insight poor. So what you're seeing us move to is being insight rich. And the more insights we get, the easier it is for the business to understand that and communicate it to councillors, or, as I said, improve their services. Through our current CRM process, I know that they do capture some of that data, but the responsibility of the business is to understand their area of subject matter of expertise and to inform us and make us set up these systems and have things there so that we can capture that. But as I said, it's not just about the data, it's about getting the insights from it. And that's what you're referring to. I know that there's currently about 10 CES codes that relate to feedback like that. It's a matter of running a report. And we're also getting better at not just running a report when it's asked for, but creating dashboards and things so people can see it and they have access to see it. The Voice of the Customer platform will also really contribute to that clear understanding.
Is there anything you wanted to add on that particular example, Mayor? I think, you know, it is quite a good one to help us understand how this all works.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, we're wanting to be more efficient and following the processes that happen in other councils in South East Queensland by directing residents to the service centre. And like I said, we always ask at budget time, how many people have asked for that footpath, how many people have asked for that road, and we don't have that data at this stage, or it's certainly not easy to capture. So I know we're on a pathway there with iVolve to capture that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I might work a little bit more on that to gain better clarity around, you know, what the ultimate outcome is. Is it waiting for Voice of the Customer to roll out? Will that provide better insights, or is it starting to, you know, ask a few of those questions now to foreshadow that that's the sort of information and the detail that we're looking for to inform our decision making. Secondly, I thought you might have an update for us because of the nature of the reporting timeline here for the Snap, Send and Solve.
Yes.
So that's moved past procurement now. And
yes.
What are the next steps there for Snap, Send, Solve?
The workshops have been completed. The workshops were about working with the business to identify I'll use an example, a barking dog. If someone filled out a form on a barking dog, there's pages of questions and things like that. So what we had to do was work with the business to identify 2 or 3 questions that would help it not just being a dog is barking here, to giving the officer more information so that they can react immediately without having to go back and find more information. And that work has been completed. And I'd like to say that the collaboration across the organisation once again was surprising to me, how flexible they were and open they were to the changes and our recommendations, but also without burdening the questions and things, but keeping our staff safe when they go on to people's properties and things like that. So it was really good collaboration across those workshops, and so we've finished those. They're in testing phase now. We expect to be live before the end of financial year. And this also extends to report an issue, which is on every page of Council's website. At the moment, it's an open field, so the person can just write anything, and we often spend a lot of time going back to the customer back and forth to find out information.
It's essentially an email at that point, right?
Yes, so it turns into insight-rich information that will go directly to the business area. Snap, Send, Solve and Report an Issue currently go through customer service. It won't anymore. It will go directly to the officer that can fix the problem or deal with the issue.
And so I guess when rolling it out, my mind immediately jumps to, do we need to be careful with how broadly we canvass the use of Snap, Send, Solve in case there's, you know, a huge uptake on the technology and that the organisation is then inundated and the workload becomes, you know, quite extensive and unable to control?
Yes, extremely careful. We've been careful in how we've monitored and timeframes between things. In relation to this, we won't tell the customer at first. Currently, last year, 5,000 people used Report an Issue across Ipswich for reporting to Ipswich City Council. So they'll see a change, anyone that's used to using it, but we won't go out until the business is ready because that's not great for our customers, and it's also not great for the program. We want to have that collaboration continue across the organisation to support this program. So we'll be very careful about that.
Have there been discussions around an uptick in usage because of because of the way the technology is with millennials and Zoomers maybe finding it more accessible to get in touch with the local government? Has that been a factor in any of these conversations today?
It was one of the reasons it was put as an immediate action plan item, but at the moment I guess we're focused on making sure it works.
Yeah. Any further questions? No. Thanks, Ms. Cahill.
Thanks.
The recommendation here is that the March 23 quarterly report concerning Council's customer experience program of work be received and its contents noted. I'll move that. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Mayor. I'll open that up for any discussion. To you, Mayor.
Madam Chair, thank you for spending some time here. This is a really important part of our business, and I note that just recently some of us did the buddy in with the services. I brought back those days I used to sit on the IT support service desk. No one ever rings you up to thank you. But really grateful for the work that the team do. Also looking forward to some of the benefits that will happen during our iVolve as well. So we did see that just, the normal business stuff, that obviously our staff in there and our teams there have got probably 4 different systems open and a few websites in order to do their job. So looking forward to some of that integration
And a
happening.
trusty little notepad app.
The notepad app, yes. And very keen to see, the Queensland Government, they use VoIP a lot, so voice over IP a lot, which can help trigger things to bring up information and also help with our data searches when we're looking for things as well. So, yeah, nice to see that progressing, and really thank the teams. They do work really hard, and just letting people know that Mondays are the busiest day, or the Tuesday after a long weekend. We've had a few of those, so they're always really, really busy those days. But obviously, other days of the week, it might be better days for people to call. Yeah.
Councillor Conserman.
I think the Mayor said something really important about, let's go back to that example of the footpath. Can we capture that one person wanted the footpath or that 20 people wanted the footpath? Because that seems to me to be a way of prioritising whether we're going to fix it. Just an idea.
Or from age, might be one of the things. I mean, obviously we look at engineering assessments and so on, but to me that'd be one of the things I think we would take into consideration.
But speaking about the iVolve involvement in the delivery of the customer experience strategy, not everything hinges on iVolve, so things will continue to move in the interim, which I think is really important. Senior managers have been to other LGAs to see what they're doing, what some of their pain points are, and how we can best serve our own workforce here within council by bringing in some of those improvements. So also mentioned in here is some of the Genesis integration. Those features were highlighted in the BBB consultancy report back to us as one of the recommendations, just saying, hey, you've got the technology there, how about you embrace it a little bit more, unlock a few more of those features. And there were extensive learnings from that report, from being within the business and trying to understand what's happening and what's not happening. It was interesting to have called out, and this is something that I've canvassed quite broadly with my fellow councillors, is when someone calls into the contact centre and they need to be transferred to a business partner or a subject matter expert, those calls aren't always being received on the other end, but our contact centre staff are the ones copping the heat for that. So I think that it's important for the organisation as a whole to take responsibility for those things, and to really understand the great work that's being done down in the contact centre. I think we've all buddied in down there now. We understand what they're up against, and when you think of a contact centre, traditionally in your mind you might think of 100 people on a floor answering phones all day. Well, the team is less than 30, and they often deal with some really complex issues that take time, and downstairs they really do take the time to do that. So I thank them for that ongoing work, and look forward with them to the future of what the ultimate results of CX mean for them in improving, you know, their workplace, you know, satisfaction as well. Councillor Kunzelman, of course.
I must say how useful it was to sit in for the course, and I'd like to do it again. Thank you.
Awesome. With no further conversation, we'll take that to the vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous and carried. And with no notices of motion or matters arising, we take the meeting to the conclusion. The time is 11:22 and the Economic and Industry Development Committee will start at 11:32 a.m.